They told me to let it go, to move on, like it was just another breakup, just another friend drifting away. But if you paid for your own heartbreak, if the money came out of your account, if you could pull up the transfer on your banking app and see the exact date and time you funded your own betrayal, could you? Could you sit there and smile at mutual friends while they whispered about how you were still hung up on it? Could you watch them post their little vacation photos without wondering if the hotel bill, the cocktails, the plane tickets had your name written all over them? Let it go. I couldn't even open my banking app without feeling my stomach twist. Because it wasn't just stolen trust. It was stolen cash, stolen time, stolen dignity, and every cent had my fingerprints on it. My name's Lila. I'm 27, and right now I'm sitting in my car outside the flat, watching two people I thought I could trust more than anyone in the world walk up the street like they've just come back from the best week of their lives. Tara's got a deep tan, her hair in those lazy beach waves she always gets when she's near the ocean. John's skin is pink at the edges. He burns before he tans, and he's pulling their little carry-on suitcases with one hand while holding a duty-free bag in the other. They're laughing at something I can't hear, moving in perfect step. Every few seconds, Tara leans her head toward him like she's about to tell him a secret, and John bends closer without missing a beat. There's an ease between them I haven't seen before. Inside jokes I'm not in on. They look like the leads in a holiday advert, except I wasn't invited on this trip, and I didn't even know it existed until 3 days ago. We'll call him John. John is 32, works in sales, and has that calm, steady way of talking that makes you feel like you could trust him with anything. When we first met, that steadiness was the thing I fell for. He didn't interrupt. He remembered small details. He made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We've been together for 3 years, and up until recently, I thought I knew exactly where we stood. And Tara, she's been my best friend since we were 12. We met in the school library when she offered me half her chocolate bar without asking for anything in return. She's been there for every heartbreak, every move, every messy night out. We've pulled each other through breakups, family drama, and those moments when the world feels too heavy to lift. I always said she was more like a sister than a friend. They were my two constants, my partner and my person, the last people I'd ever expect to hurt me. And maybe that's why I ignored the little things. Like the way Tara always made a point to hug John a little longer than necessary when we saw each other. Or how John seemed to remember her coffee order better than mine. Harmless, I told myself. Tara's always been touchy and John's just polite. There was the night we all went out with friends, and I caught them in the corner. Heads close, laughing about something I couldn't hear. I felt that little pinch in my stomach. But when they saw me looking, Tara waved me over like nothing was wrong. And John smiled like he'd been waiting for me to join them. I told myself I was imagining it. That's the thing about trust. Once you've decided someone's safe, you work overtime to explain away the moments that don't fit. The night it all started, it was late. Nearly midnight. I'd just finished watching some mindless TV, half asleep on the couch, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Tara. No emojis, no context, just, "Emergency, can I borrow $800? I'll explain later. I'll pay you back next month." I called her straight away. She picked up on the second ring, sounding breathless. "I can't get into it right now," she said. "It's just urgent. Please, Lila, you're the only one I can ask." My first thought was that something awful had happened. Her car had broken down. She needed a deposit for something important, maybe a family emergency. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't ask for details. This was Tara. If she said it was an emergency, that was enough for me. "Yeah, of course," I said. "Send me your details." I moved some money from my savings and transferred it right there. She sent back a string of heart emojis and a promise to take me to dinner as soon as she could. When I mentioned it to John the next day, he didn't even blink. "If you can help her, you should," he said, like it was obvious. That's what friends do. And in that moment, I believed it. I thought I'd just done a good thing for my best friend. I had no idea I'd just paid for my own heartbreak. I met Tara when we were 12 in the back corner of the school library. I was sitting alone, pretending to read, mostly just trying not to cry because I just had the kind of blowout fight with my mom that feels like the end of the world when you're that age. Tara sat down without asking. split her chocolate bar in half, and slid it onto my desk. "Don't bother telling me what's wrong," she said. "You've got the face of someone who's sick of talking." That was it. From then on, we were inseparable. Over the years, we became each other's emergency contacts in every sense of the word. We'd sneak out together to avoid strict parents, cry into the same blanket during breakups, and play each other's girlfriend to ward off creepy guys at bars. I knew her family. She knew mine. When she had no money for rent one year, I let her crash on my couch for 3 months without asking for a penny. She repaid me in food, laughter, and by showing up to help me move house in the rain. Twice. It never felt like keeping score. That's the thing about real friendship. You don't measure it. You just show up. John came into my life 3 years ago. Through Tara, of course. She'd invited me to a birthday party for one of her work friends. I almost didn't go. I was burnt out, sick of dating apps, and convinced that meeting anyone decent in this city was impossible. But Tara knew how to nudge me without making it feel like pressure. "You've been hiding for weeks. At least come have a drink. You might meet someone who doesn't make you want to move to a nunnery." That someone was John. He wasn't flashy. No over-the-top flirting, no cheesy pickup lines. Just steady, warm energy. He asked me about my work and actually listened. He laughed at my sarcastic jokes, but didn't try to one-up me. Tara introduced us with this big grin like she'd already decided he'd pass whatever unspoken test she had in mind. From then on, he started showing up. At first, it was casual group things, Tara's wine nights, weekend brunches. Then he'd text me on his own. Before I knew it, we were seeing each other regularly. One thing I always liked was how well John and Tara got along. She'd tease him about his love for bland takeaway food, and he'd mock her obsession with crime podcasts. It never felt like competition. In fact, it made me feel safer, knowing the two most important people in my life got along. If I had to sum myself up, I'd say I'm loyal to a fault. I give the benefit of the doubt until there's none left to give. I'd rather risk being too generous than too suspicious. People have called it naive. I call it believing in the people I love. Which is probably why, when Tara texted me that night asking to borrow money, I didn't hesitate. Still, I noticed it was strange. Tara never kept things from me, not big ones. And yet here she was, saying it was an emergency, but refusing to say what it was. "It's complicated," she said the one time I pushed. "I'll tell you when it's sorted." Then she changed the subject to some influencer drama she knew would distract me. I figured it had to be something embarrassing. Maybe debt she didn't want to admit, maybe trouble at work. I told myself she'd tell me when she was ready. John's reaction to the loan was just as straightforward. I mentioned it over breakfast, half expecting him to ask what it was for. He didn't. "If you can help her, you should," he said, sipping his coffee. "That's what friends do." He was right. And yet, the timing was odd. He'd been harder to get hold of lately, too. Nights where he was caught up at work, or too tired to talk, even when we'd planned to spend the evening together. Not constant, just enough that I noticed. It crossed my mind, just for a second, that maybe Tara's emergency had something to do with him. But I shut that thought down immediately. It was ridiculous. Tara wouldn't keep something like that from me, and John wouldn't. Well, he just wouldn't. I told myself I was overthinking, letting little coincidences pile up into something they weren't. After all, I'd built my life around these two. Tara had been my person for more than a decade. John was the man I thought I'd marry. If something was wrong, they'd tell me. Wouldn't they? It started with a flicker on my phone screen. I was lying in bed scrolling, the way you do when you're too tired to get up but not tired enough to sleep, when a story from a mutual friend popped up. Just a quick boomerang from the airport. Boarding pass in one hand, coffee in the other. I almost tapped past it. But then, in the blurry background, a familiar figure walked past. Long hair, tote bag slung over one shoulder, that distinct bounce in her step. Tara. I stared at it, rewound the boomerang, played it again. It was her. No doubt. I waited for a caption, something like, "Off to visit family," or "Finally getting away for a weekend." But nothing came. Just the coffee and the boarding pass. I texted her right away. "Hey, are you at the airport?" A few minutes later, she replied, "Yeah, last-minute deal with a friend. Totally random. Tell you about it when I'm back." Last-minute deal? Tara was many things, but spontaneous travel wasn't one of them. She was a planner. Even our casual wine nights had a Google Calendar invite. I typed back, "Fun, where to?" But she didn't answer. That night, John didn't call. He always called, even if it was just for 5 minutes before bed. I told myself it was fine. Maybe he'd fallen asleep early. Maybe he was busy. But when I called him the next day, it went straight to voicemail. The following day was the same, and the one after that. On the third day, he finally texted, "Sorry, phone died and I forgot my charger. Been crazy busy. Miss you." I stared at the words, trying to picture the scene where a 32-year-old man just forgets his charger for 3 straight days. When Tara came back online, she posted a single shot of a beach at sunset. No people, no captions, just golden light over the water. The unease in my stomach had gone from a flutter to a stone. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't expect. John had been tagged in a photo. It wasn't from his account, he rarely posted, but from another guy we both knew, someone I'd met a few times at parties. I tapped it open and my throat went dry. There was John, sitting poolside, sunglasses on, drink in hand. And next to him, so close their knees were touching, was Tara. She was laughing, leaning in toward him, her hand resting lightly on his drink as if it was hers. They looked easy together, comfortable, like people who had spent more than a few days side by side. I felt heat rush to my face, not the kind that comes with anger, the kind that comes with shame. Because my first thought wasn't, how could they? It was, what did I miss? I screenshotted the photo before it could disappear, before anyone could delete it. My hands were shaking so hard it took me 2 tries. I called John first. He answered on the second ring, his voice light, almost cheerful. "Hey, babe. Where are you?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "At a friend's place. Why?" "I saw a picture of you with Tara at a pool, on vacation." There was a pause. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, that? Total coincidence. I was visiting a mate who lives near the resort she's at. We just ran into each other. Ended up hanging out by the pool. 3 days in a row? Don't be dramatic," he said, his voice turning flat. "It wasn't like that." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. I called Tara next. She picked up sounding surprised. "Hey, what's up?" "I saw the photo." "What photo?" she asked, all innocence. "The one of you and John, poolside." "Oh my God," she said, like it was the funniest thing. "That was nothing. We just happened to be at the same resort. Can you believe it? Such a small world." My mouth was dry. "You didn't think to mention it?" "I didn't want to make it weird," she said, her tone slipping into that careful, reasonable cadence that always made me feel like I was overreacting. "You know how you can get when you're stressed." And just like that, the script was set. Same lines, different voices, matching stories, word for word. I told myself they couldn't have coordinated it, but of course they could. They'd had plenty of time. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying both conversations. The words were different in places, but the rhythm was identical. Casual, dismissive. The tone you use with someone who's asking a question they already know the answer to. It didn't matter how neat their story sounded. I'd seen the picture. And once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. The next few days were a blur of half conversations and awkward silences. Word got around fast. Not because I told anyone, but because apparently John and Tara had already started laying the groundwork. It started with a mutual friend pulling me aside at work drinks. "Hey, I heard you're upset about something. Tara said there was a mix-up while you were all on holiday or something." We were all on holiday? The way she said it, like I'd been there too, made my head spin. Then came the split. A couple of friends jumped straight to their defense. "You know Tara would never do that, and John's not that kind of guy." Others didn't say anything at all, which was worse. Silence from people who usually had an opinion meant they were waiting to see how this played out, which only made me feel like I was already losing some invisible popularity contest I didn't know I was in. Meanwhile, whenever I confronted John or Tara, I got the same story, word for word. She was already booked to go. I happened to be nearby visiting a friend. We just ran into each other at the pool. It would have been rude not to hang out. Same tone, same beats, like they'd practiced. The thing about hearing the same lie twice, is that it almost sounds like the truth. Almost. I tried to let it go, to give them the benefit of the doubt, but the image of them sitting together, knees touching, her hand on his drink, kept replaying in my head. My brain wouldn't let it drop. So I did what any rational, definitely not overreacting person would do. I checked my bank statements. Scrolling through the transactions, I found them. Hotel charges in a coastal town I'd never been to. 2 different restaurants, one with a name I recognized from travel vlogs, the other a fancy place that booked out months in advance. The dates matched perfectly with when John couldn't find his charger and when Tara had gone off the grid. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. It was one thing to have a bad feeling. It was another to see it in black and white, time-stamped and processed. When I confronted John, he didn't even blink. I told you I was visiting a friend. We went out for dinner. What's the big deal? The big deal is that Tara was there, and you never mentioned it. You're blowing this way out of proportion, he said, calm as ever, like I was the one who just said something ridiculous. Tara's version was no better. We didn't hide anything. You never asked where I was staying. It was so neat, so tidy, that I almost started to believe them. Almost. Because here's the thing. When 2 people keep their stories perfectly aligned, it doesn't just make them sound convincing. It makes you start to question yourself. Was I overreacting? Was it really just an unfortunate coincidence that they ended up in the same place? Maybe I was letting my imagination run wild because of a single photo. I found myself rehearsing what I'd say to people if they asked, toning it down, making it sound less dramatic. Yeah, it's just a misunderstanding, I'd say, even though a part of me knew it wasn't. Late at night, I'd scroll back through the picture, zooming in on their faces, trying to read something in the way Tara was leaning toward him, the relaxed set of his shoulders. Was it friendly? Flirty? Was I projecting? The worst part was how careful they both were. They didn't give me anything obvious. No flustered denials, no slip-ups. Just the same calm delivery, the same, "you're making too much of this" tone. And the more they said it, the more I started to think they might be right. That's the danger of gaslighting. You don't feel the floor disappearing under you all at once. It's one board at a time until you look down and realize there's nothing left holding you up. By the end of that week, I wasn't sure if I was furious or embarrassed. I'd gone from certain something was wrong to wondering if maybe the real problem was me. Still, I couldn't shake the numbers on that bank statement. They were like bruises, fading in color but still sore to the touch. And somewhere deep down, I knew they were going to hurt a lot more before they stopped. The thing about hindsight is it doesn't just give you clarity, it gives you an entire highlight reel of moments you wish you'd paid attention to the first time. Once that picture of them by the pool burned itself into my brain, I couldn't stop rewinding. I started thinking about all the times John had been caught up at work or helping a friend move, and how often those nights lined up with Tara being out with the girls or visiting her cousin. At the time, it had felt like coincidence. I mean, we all have lives, friends, errands, things that don't involve our partners. But now, the calendar in my head started to sync in a way I didn't like. I remembered one Friday in particular. John texted me around 5 p.m. to say his boss had dumped a last-minute project on him, so he'd be working late. Tara messaged me an hour later. Heading to my aunt's for the weekend, no signal out there. I'd sent her a heart emoji and wished her a good trip. Spent that weekend watching movies alone while John crashed at his mates because it was too late to come over after work. And now? Now I wondered if that weekend had been something entirely different. There were other little things that started to take on new meaning. Like the time I came home early from work and found Tara sitting on my couch with John, both of them mid-laugh. They'd said they'd just bumped into each other at the cafe down the street and decided to hang out until I got back. Or the way Tara would casually ask me months ago, "Is John working late this week?" Or, "What nights do you guys have plans?" At the time, I thought she was just making conversation, maybe figuring out when we could schedule a girls' night. But, looking back, the questions were targeted. Almost like she was checking his availability for something that had nothing to do with me. Even her phrasing felt different now. "What nights are you busy?" instead of "When are you free?" It was subtle, but the intent sat differently in my chest now. I thought about one night in particular, my birthday. John had to duck out for an hour because of a work call. Tara disappeared around the same time, claiming she was walking to her car to grab my gift. Neither of them had been gone long enough to be suspicious then. But now, my mind replayed it in high definition, wondering where they'd actually been in those missing minutes. The more I rewound, the more I realized that their absences often came in pairs. And when one of them was unreachable, the other usually was too. It was like connecting dots on a page, the kind of puzzle you don't see until you step back. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. What hurt most wasn't just the idea of what they might have been doing. It was knowing that all those nights I'd felt a flicker of doubt, I'd shut it down. I'd told myself I was being paranoid. I'd made excuses for them before they even had to. I wanted to believe I was imagining it. God, I wanted that more than anything. But the more I lined up the memories, the clearer it became. I wasn't imagining it. I was just late to my own story. I didn't want to ask her. I wanted the truth to arrive clean, without me having to drag it out of someone who thought we were all still friends. But the picture wouldn't stop replaying in my head. The pool, the drink, Tara's hand, and the numbers on my bank statement sat there like bruises. So I messaged the mutual friend who'd posted that first airport story. "We'll call her Neve." She replied in seconds. "Hey babe, everything okay?" I typed, deleted, typed again. "Can we grab a coffee? I want to ask about that airport story you posted last week." There was a beat. "Oh, yeah, totally. I'm free after work tomorrow." We met at a quiet place halfway between our flats, the kind of cafe where the milk comes in little glass bottles and the staff write your name on the cup with a heart. I got there early and spent 10 minutes pretending to read the chalkboard menu so I wouldn't run back home and crawl under a blanket. Neve showed up with her hair damp from the rain and that panicked kindness people get when they suspect you're about to cry. She hugged me, ordered a latte, and sat across from me with both hands wrapped around her cup. "So," she said gently, "what's going on?" "I saw your airport story," I said, "with Tara in the background." Neve blinked, then nodded like this was the part she expected. "Right, yeah, that was hectic. You know how airports are." "Did you know she was going away?" I asked. Neve hesitated. I assumed you did." Something slid sideways in my chest. "Assumed I knew what?" "That she and John were going," she said, and the words landed like wet concrete. I thought it was a couples thing. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I was suddenly very aware of the cafe noise. The plate clatter, the milk steamer, the little bell at the door every time someone came in. All of it too bright, too cheerful, like the world hadn't understood the assignment. Neve put her cup down. "Lila, I'm so sorry. I genuinely thought you knew. They booked it weeks ago, maybe longer." "Weeks? Booked what?" I asked, and my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. "The trip," she said. "I was in a group chat with them and a few others when they were talking about going. I only chimed in to recommend that resort because my cousin stayed there last year. I didn't realize—" She stopped, winced. "I didn't realize you weren't part of it." My hands were cold. "Can you show me?" She looked uncomfortable. Not guilty. Uncomfortable, like someone who's about to show you a picture you won't be able to unsee. "I don't want to invade anyone's privacy." "Please," I said. "I need to stop guessing." Neve bit her lip, then unlocked her phone and scrolled. Her thumbs moved quickly like muscle memory. She opened a chat titled Sun Insanity with 4 names at the top. Tara, John, hers, and a 4th I didn't recognize. She didn't hand me the phone. She set it face up on the table and angled it so we could both see. Little bubbles stacked in neat, horrible order. Tara, "We all deserve a break. I'm losing my mind." John, "Work's been savage. I'm in if the dates work." Neve, "Go to the Costa Maris. Pool is legit, rooms are clean, and the beach is close." 4th person, "I'm out. Dates clash with my brother's wedding." Tara, "No, fine. John, can you do 14/20th? John, "Yeah, need to shuffle a couple meetings, but should be okay." I watched the messages roll by like a transcript of my humiliation. The dates, the jokes, the logistics. Tara, "Flights are painful right now. I can cover mine and sort his later if needed." John, "We'll make it work. I'll sort my bit." Neve, "Book early. You'll save loads." 2 minutes later, Tara, "Okay, don't hate me, but I might need to borrow to lock this in." John, "We'll figure it out. She can cover it short term." I swallowed. Who's she? Neve glanced at me. I think you. I stared at the screen. The text wasn't explicit, not legally, not clean enough to take to court. But anyone who reads people more than contracts would see it. The shape of the plan, the casual entitlement, the assumption that I was a line item. Neve scrolled further. John, if it's easier, she'll front it and I'll pay back after payday. Tara, LOL perfect. She's an angel. Neve, you two are chaos. My chest was tight. Go further, I said. Please. More messages. Hotel confirmation numbers, a link to the resort, a joke about sharing sunscreen. A private thread where Tara sent a screenshot of the flight search and wrote, found a decent price, but I'll need her to cover mine today. He'll sort his by Friday. Then, later, the same day. Tara. Update. Sorted. She sent it. I'll pay her back next month. John. Legend. I'll transfer you for my ticket after I move some money. Tara. No stress. We'll figure it when we're back. Neve. Living vicariously through you both. Send beach pics? Both. Both. Not the group, not the guys. Both. I didn't realize I was breathing fast until Neve put a hand on my sleeve. Lila, please don't hate me. I thought you were in on it. I swear. I don't hate you, I said, and I meant it. My anger was a clean, sharp thing pointing in exactly 2 directions. Can you send me those? She hesitated. I don't want drama. Drama already happened, I said quietly. I just need proof that I'm not losing my mind. She took a screenshot. 2, 3, 4. She sent them to me with a single message. I'm sorry. Then she turned her phone face down like it had burned her. We sat there for a while, listening to the cafe breathe. I stared at my cup and tried to count backwards from 100, a trick I once read about to stop panic attacks. It didn't work. Numbers kept turning into dates. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady. They planned it weeks ago. Neve nodded, eyes soft. Yeah. They used my money. She didn't answer that. She didn't have to. The chat had already said it for her, in emojis and breezy half-sentences that didn't look like theft until you lined them up with a bank transfer and a poolside photo. Humiliation arrived first. Hot, full body, the kind that makes your skin feel too tight. Then anger, cold and organized, like a spreadsheet with color-coded tabs. After that came shame, kicking at my ribs. How could I have been this easy to play? How many times had I literally defended them to myself? I thought about the night Tara texted me. Emergency. Can I borrow $800? And how quickly my fingers had moved. I thought about John the next morning, smiling over his coffee, telling me, if you can help her, you should. The confidence of a man narrating the script he already knew by heart. Neve reached for my hand. What are you going to do? Get my money back, I said, though even as I said it, it sounded too clean for what I felt. Money wasn't the currency here. It was dignity. Time. The version of myself that believed the people I loved would never calculate me. I opened my banking app and scrolled to the transfer. There it was. Date, time, amount. I took a screenshot and added it to the folder I'd started on my phone. Receipts. Photos. Now these messages. For a second, I wanted to throw my phone across the room, not because it hurt to look at, but because it made everything too clear. There's a safety in doubt. If you're guessing, you can still hope you're wrong. Proof removes that. I looked up. Neve? Yeah? If you were me, would you forgive them? She flinched. I don't think that's what they are asking you to do. What are they asking? To accept the version where it was messy and unfortunate, but not cruel, she said carefully. The version where it just happened and you're too emotional to see it. I laughed. It came out ugly. Yeah, that one. We finished our coffees. She hugged me outside, tight and quick, like she was bracing me against the weather. I walked home in a straight line, past shop windows that reflected a woman I didn't recognize. Someone smaller, somehow, like my outline had been erased and redrawn by someone with a cheaper pencil. Back at the flat, I put my phone on the table, laid the screenshots beside it like exhibits. The group chat, the dates, the casual. She'll cover it. The punchline, she sent it. I sat there a long time, letting the humiliation crest and break, until anger settled in like a second spine. They hadn't slipped. They hadn't stumbled into a mistake. They'd planned it, budgeted it, scheduled it, and they'd used my softness as collateral. I could hear Tara's voice in my head. "It's complicated. I'll tell you when it's sorted." I could hear John's. "If you can help her, you should." And for the first time since this started, I didn't doubt my memory. I didn't wonder if I was overreacting. I didn't ask myself if I was being fair. I wasn't imagining it. I was just late to my own story. And now I had the script they'd been reading from. I didn't message them straight away. I wanted the conversation to be face-to-face, partly because texts can be twisted, partly because I wanted to see their expressions when they realized the game was over. So I waited, I rehearsed, I scrolled through the screenshots until I could recite them in order. 2 days later, Tara texted, "Can we talk?" I replied, "Sure, come by tonight." John was already at my flat when she arrived. Perfect. 1 table, 2 chairs, 3 people. I'd pictured this moment so many times. In most versions, I was screaming. In reality, I was calm. They sat opposite me, side by side like a united front. Tara folded her arms. John leaned back, casual, the same body language he used in arguments where he thought he'd win. "So," I said, "how was the trip?" John's eyebrow flicked up just slightly. "We already told you. It was coincidence." Tara nodded. "Yeah, we just happened to—" "Save it," I said. I slid my phone across the table. The group chat was open, screenshots ready. "This is the part where you explain why you were planning it weeks before you bumped into each other." They froze for less than a second, but I saw it. That half beat where the lie gets stuck in their throat because they didn't expect the evidence to be this solid. Tara recovered first. "Lila, you're twisting—" "I'm reading," I cut in, "and so will anyone else I show this to." John leaned forward, voice low. "You've been in your head about this for days. You're making it bigger than it is." "Bigger than you both using my money to fund your holiday?" I asked. "Bigger than planning it behind my back while you sat here eating dinner with me like nothing was happening?" Silence. Then John shrugged. Actually shrugged. "We needed a break. You weren't coming. She needed help with the ticket. You had the money. It's not like you couldn't afford it." That was twist number 3. Not an admission of love, not a confession of guilt, just the blunt truth that it was never about the relationship, never about loyalty. It was about what they could get away with. Tara shifted uncomfortably. "I was going to pay you back." "You don't get to pay back trust," I said. "You don't get to replace the hours I spent defending you in my head when the truth was sitting in your pocket the whole time." John rolled his eyes. "This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you. You get dramatic." "Dramatic," I repeated. "You think I'm dramatic because I caught you stealing from me?" His face tightened, just slightly. "No one stole anything. You sent it voluntarily." It was almost funny, the way he tried to spin it into my fault. Almost. I stood. "We're done here. Both of you." Tara's mouth opened like she was about to beg, or maybe justify, but I didn't give her the space. I walked to the door, held it open. Neither of them moved at first. When they finally did, it was slow, like leaving on my terms was the one thing they didn't want to give me. The door clicked shut behind them, and the silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd heard all week. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't post a cryptic quote on Instagram for everyone to dissect. I just blocked them both. Phone, socials, email, every shared password, every app we'd ever split for convenience. Gone. I changed the locks on my flat, canceled John's access to my streaming accounts because if he wanted to watch TV, he could pay for it himself. 2 days later, I filed the small claims paperwork. Not because I needed the money to survive, but because it was mine. And because I refused to let them walk away thinking there were no consequences. I attached the screenshots, the bank transfer record, the payment confirmations. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about drawing a line in black ink. For the first time in weeks, I slept without waking up at 3 a.m. replaying conversations in my head. The thing about removing people from your life is that it's quiet at first. Too quiet. You expect to feel better immediately, but instead you feel the empty space they used to fill. You wonder if cutting them off was too harsh, if maybe you overreacted. And then you remember they counted on that softness. They spent it like spare change. I started filling the space with things they couldn't touch. I joined a local book club. Said yes when a coworker invited me out for drinks. I took a pottery class, even though I was terrible at it, and laughed so hard when my first attempt collapsed that the woman next to me offered me her spare clay. 2 months later, I booked a holiday. Solo. Same coastline, different resort. Paid for in full with my own money. No loans, no guilt, no explaining myself to anyone. I walked along the beach in the mornings and ordered champagne at dinner just because I could. Nobody's laughter in my ear that wasn't mine. By the time the small claims ruling came through, I didn't even feel the sting anymore. The court ordered repayment. I knew I'd probably never see the full amount, but that wasn't the win I was after. The win was knowing I'd handled it cleanly without giving them the scene they wanted. Sometimes closure isn't an apology or an explanation. Sometimes it's just a locked door and the knowledge that you're on the other side of it, safe. And if there's anything I learned, it's this. If someone borrows your trust, they'll spend it faster than your cash. I didn't lose a boyfriend and a best friend. I dropped 2 debts. They can keep each other. I'm keeping my peace.